Okay, everybody, we're about to get started. We're going to be live streaming again in about 2 minutes?
30 seconds.
30 seconds, I'm sorry. There was food back there?
And the coffee.
There's coffee back there, too.
Man.
Jeannie, do we need to go get you a cup of coffee?
No, I'm all good. I'm good. I just missed the food in the house. So I think we are at 3 o'clock. So welcome back to everybody, and welcome back to everybody online. And just so everybody knows, we've had quite a good viewing audience. We've had about 350 folks watching us on YouTube. We've had, let's see, around 1,500, I think, on Facebook and about 3,700 on Twitter. Now, on Facebook and Twitter, they've been jumping in and out, so that doesn't mean they've been sitting there, glued to our every word. But that's pretty good. Those are pretty good numbers. So you guys are pretty compelling online content. Congratulations. So during the break...
that is so awesome.
I know. It is awesome. It is awesome. During the break, we had a couple of ideation sessions, feedback sessions, where we talked about a variety of subjects. So now we have the facilitators for those sessions here to tell us what we heard from our users. Brian, I want to just start with you. You kind of had the catch-all category. So tell us a little bit about what you heard.
Sure, we had the swim theme and the catch-all. So first, it was hugely positive, and the comments that we got on the catch-all were, keep this going. Let's continue the feedback, and we appreciate everyone being here to give us that feedback, because we don't want to do this alone. We don't want to tell you what you want. People are very excited about the swim cloud. We had a number of people come, and this was the first that they had heard about that. So hopefully they've scanned the QR code this morning, and they will be receiving those updates as we go.
And can we just remind for the people who are watching who may be data professionals but may not know what SWIM stands for, if you can just tell them that.
Sure. SWIM is System-Wide Information Management.
Thank you.
People want an easy way to receive publicly available information. That was a big theme. Why is it so difficult to get information that's already publicly available? Around this same topic, it was open APIs. That was, I lost count of how many sticky notes we had up there for just give us open APIs, make it easiest for us to get this information, and instead of a single log on, receive those APIs. Swim in was one kind of topic that was kind of discussed a few points. People wanted a way to get their input into SWIM as well. They wanted this kind of engagement to happen. Over-communicate what's on SWIM now, what we expect to see on SWIM in the future, and continue to share those timelines with the public. And simplify the onboard process. People were, again, excited about the simplifying process of SWIM Cloud, and they want to see that continue. What else can we do to simplify that process?
Okay, thank you. Was there anybody who was in Brian's group who wants to make a comment or have a question? We'll come back to you later. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Lauren, you had the Aeronautical Information group. What kinds of things did you hear from our users?
So we did. We tackled all of aeronautical information, so that included more than just looking at Notams alone. So one of the questions was, how are you getting your AI? So a couple of the things that stood out were AirNav, flightplan.com, and NASA. The big thing that kept coming up with what's working is the reliability, so reliable downloads, which was big. As far as what are the best formats that you're getting your aeronautical information, we heard AXM, JSON, and XML. And then how would you like to consume it in the future? The biggest thing that we heard, which is the common theme, was you want to see digital data sets. You want everything digital and APIs also, which Brian touched upon. And then what are you doing with your data once you receive it? So we heard that you're validating, you're sorting, you're disseminating. And then at times you're also augmenting missing properties that you're seeing. And then you can also parse, you're parsing the text, you're filtering it, and then obviously displaying the data. How are you obtaining your AI? So one of the biggest ones we heard was DAFIF. So DAFIF is the Digital Aeronautical Flight Information File, and that's provided by NGA, which is the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, a part of DoD. SWIM was another big one, NASAR, ADAP, JEPISON, and LIDO. So those are the ones that stood out. What's currently working, the biggest one that we saw over and over was ADAP, and that stands for the Aeronautical Integrated Data Access Portal. So that's the one that gives users the textual, NOTAM, and weather data over the web. So a lot of the feedback was that ADAP is very stable. Some of the challenges that we heard, reviewing and cross-checking multiple data sources. So there's lots of duplicate data sources or inconsistent data. And we also heard elements that are missing within the XML itself. The best formats for getting your AI in the future, again, like you had touched upon, Brian, web-based APIs that will push data to the customer. Also looking for one authorized source for data, so a one-stop shop. So that was some of the bigger themes that popped out.
Okay. Anybody who participated in that group want to add anything or have any questions? Nope. Okay. Steve, your group, Notams, you had the Notam group. So what did you hear?
A lot of the same thing I've been hearing over here. Heard a lot of ADAP.
And what is that on your tie?
Is it a basketball?
Those are basketballs? Okay. I thought they were
Drones.
pumpkins for
They're
a minute. I
drones.
just was checking.
Drones.
Okay. Okay.
When-
It's a great tie.
The first questions we had asked was about what is the data source you're getting your NOTAM information from? And I saw at least 10 different data sources that were listed, ADAP being the most popular one on there, Pilot Web, DoD, other web sources, SWIM, and the list went on. And this has been an issue we've been trying to deal with all this time. There are too many data sources. We need to get that cut down. Second question had to do with what currently works for where you're getting your data from. Actually, there seemed to be quite a bit of satisfaction. It was reliable information. It was accessible. It was quick. Again, there was many references to ADAP there, which was consistent with what we're hearing. There was also that it was available online. It was an authoritative source. So those are good things. We were asked, what challenges do you have getting your NOTAM data? And there's different sources have different data. They're not always consistent with each other is a problem, and I can understand that. We heard earlier today about the TFRs and about the not having geospatial information with that. It makes it a challenge. And I love this comment, too much garbage. That the message formats are non-standard. It's a nice, honest description of the problem that we're trying to deal with. They were also asked what formats are best for receiving your NOTAM data, and a pretty short list of what I was seeing on here. AXIM, XML, JSON, where the comment I did really enjoy was just not make it text. That's what it was, as long as it's not text. And then there was how would you like to consume your NOTAM data in the future? Similar answers we've seen there again with the AXIM, the APIs, web services, make it a digital format. On the question of how can the FAA streamline NOTAM data to make it better to fit your needs, one answer I saw was consistent was the ICAO format, which is a big goal we're trying to achieve here, and or moving to ICAO terminology. And there has been some movement in that area, but there's still some work that we can do on that. And then there was just increasing FNS reliability. The last question had to do with what do you do with your FAA-supplied NOTAM data after you receive it? We've seen a lot of the same descriptions that all of you have talked about the parsing, the categorizing, prioritizing, all of that sorting of information. But there was also that normalizing of the acronyms between especially us and our international users. Search and destroy distractions, get rid of Notam data that doesn't need to be out there, and just stripping away information to make it useful. I did have a last conversation, and it was about relevant data. One of the ones in there was the obstruction towers that are out there, and whether we need to define, is that information that is really relevant and needs to be distributed via the Notam system. And I'm sure there's other data sets that fall in that same manner. That was it.
Okay, thank you very much. And Abby, you had you moderated the questions that came in online. So what kinds of things did you see?
Well, I mean, so we've heard some common themes already between Brian, Lauren, and Steve, and so this is really not a lot different, Jeannie. So under the aeronautical information challenges themes, something just to add to what's already been said, that aeronautical information is daunting if you're not familiar with the data. It speaks to the need for user-centric design thinking. And if I can take you all back to this morning, do you remember this morning when Drew Zachary from the Census Bureau talked about the fact that when they put the data set out, they were thinking about, oh, it's all these experts that are going to be consuming that data. But in fact, it was a bunch of novices who just needed the information. And so there was a lot of energy on the web about that need for that user-centric design thinking. Something else on aeronautical information formats that just is a slight permutation of what's already been said. Different users have different needs, obviously. One size has never fit all, it's only fit one size. So AIXM for repeat users or operators is great. XML or text for single analysis. Understanding our audience and then being able to segment information as the customer or user's need was an additional theme teased out from our web people. On the Notam data, it was clear from the internet chat that users have many different ways that they consume Notams. The digital Notam and the ICAO formatted Notam are definitely the preferred ways that people want their information formatted. AIXM and XML were mentioned, and then also the JSON was a fairly new one to the conversation. So that's what we got from the virtual audience.
Okay, and I want to open it up again and see if anybody else has a comment or a question, anything they think needs to be added that we haven't talked about yet. Anybody? No? Did any of you, I'll turn it back to you, did any of you hear anything that surprised you that you hadn't heard before? Brian?
I'll say it's nothing that I haven't heard before. The common API theme, but the overwhelming push towards that. That was, I won't say surprising to me, but it kind of opened my eyes to, hey, there's this easy way we can do things. Let's try and move in that direction.
Anybody else?
So I'm probably tied more to the legacy manner of Notams being entered and distributed, person to person. And, having watched this move to automation in the last 10, 15 years, what came back to me is that we've been trying to build systems that distribute everything to everybody. And one of the comments I got here was, tailored to the mission. How do we take all this information and make it customizable, to the end user, that we're not shotgunning everything out to everybody.
Okay. How about you, Abby? Did you hear anything you hadn't heard before?
Well, I would just kind of echo what Brian said about the APIs. That was, it was like, whoa, this is like really different, because the challenge that we have is that we are this giant organization and we have so many different functions and missions even within the safety and efficiency of flight. And so this opportunity and experience to be with you, the people that are using the products and services that we like work so hard at every day, is a refreshing moment. You know, so I mean, the API was really pretty stunning, and I think also the reminder that I really got today about the fact that, well, we could say that we have too much information. I'm not sure that it is too much information because it has so many different consumers that use it. The importance is, how do we work in partnership with you, industry, and the end users, to make sure that in that big bounty of information that we have, you get what you need, because everybody's needs are going to be different in this large community.
Lauren, anything surprising?
I think in talking with some of my fellow colleagues, that JSON that came up over and over was somewhat new to some of us for the first time.
So we have some sophisticated data users
Yes,
with very specific needs and requests.
absolutely.
So anybody? Yes.
Should I move in a little bit?
Yeah,
or-
come on in,
Hi.
Mark, and introduce yourself.
Mark C, Ops Group. I think it's super encouraging. I want to say thank you to everybody that's organized this. It's been a great event. Hearing everybody here just say the magic words API and JSON reflects the conversation that's been happening in every corner of the room. So this morning we went through a bunch of presentations about what it looks like for the pilot and the dispatcher on the front end. And I think there's been a shift where we've realized that the work has to happen on the back end. That's where we need to focus the effort. So the API is critical. The structure of the data, JSON is maybe the most friendly, but at least we're having that conversation, so that's awesome. And then from there, it means that everybody can customize the reliable data that's on the back end for their own needs. And it doesn't matter if you're an airline or a general aviation pilot, if you're making an app, if you're industry, whoever. But you have a data set on the back end that's super reliable and delivered in a format that you can use. So seeing that shift is fantastic, and it means that this event, this conference, has done its job of starting with a lot of conversation and filtering down to everybody saying what we've just talked about. So well done. I think it's awesome. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody want to weigh in on APIs? We've heard a lot of talk about that, sir. Come on up.
My name is Diego.
Come on, you gotta see the little tape. This is our little world we live in up here. Welcome.
It's nice and warm. This morning, just back a few hours, we started the conversation describing what are Notams, why they exist, and all of that. And this has been the history, right, since the 40s maybe. Do you think there is any chance of like superseding this ARAC cycles, the fact that we have to have Notams to something more modern? It's great to talk about modernization of Notams, but what about modernization of the whole thing? And I heard a statement this morning that we cannot get around a 28-day cycle, but what if we could?
So, Diego, thank you, and thank you for coming up, and wave to everybody online. Great. So that's a great question, and I think the answer is, of course, we can get there. I guess the challenge is, and we do have people here from the International Civil Aviation Organization, and one of the things, I was a delegate at one point to the information management panel in my last job that I was in, and one of the challenges that we faced on that panel, and that I would think we face as an international community is, so we happen to have the luxury of being in one of the richest countries in the history of the world. And the Europeans also tend to be a very rich country and consortia. But we also have to make sure that we've democratized information so that if you don't have a sophisticated system, you still have access. And so I think that we can absolutely get somewhere at some point. And in the meantime, for those of us that have systems that can consume data, for the end user, it can feel very fluid if we set our vision that way. I don't know if does that resonate with you a little bit?
What would you do instead of the
Yeah.
Notam system? What would that look like?
Well, usually what I relate it to is the street maps, right? We don't have a street map that tell us how the roads look like last month, and then a text that tells us avoid Lincoln Avenue because there's an accident or there's work in progress, right? We have Google Maps, we have Waze. I don't take money from any of these two companies, by the way. Or maybe, I don't know. But so we have something that tells us don't take Lincoln Avenue, take whatever other avenue. I've never been to Washington before, so I'm sure there is a Lincoln Avenue somewhere. No? Oh, sure.
It's a couple of buildings too. Yeah.
Can we say shit live? No. Shot. Okay. So that's what I think. Like we should look. So don't tell me the airport is going to be closed next week. But if I ask you, can I go to that airport next week? Tell me you cannot. Right. So it's all an AIS shift to I give you the data and then I tell you it's changing, or I give you the data that is current in that moment.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, that's like right on, because if we're doing it real time, certainly there's a text message, but there can be something that's more intuitive, that looks like a normal chart message, that just gives that the appearance that it doesn't matter if it's a 28-day cycle or if it's an asynchronous change to data, the user experience can be consistent. And I think that's a really great vision for the future. Thank you for being brave enough to come and say hi to. Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Anybody else? You guys are the users, and we're here to hear from you. So does anybody else have any comments, questions? Yes, sir.
Come on up.
Come on up.
All right. Thank you. Right here. All right. Thanks, buddy.
Say your name.
I'll tell you what I haven't heard
Hey,
is
Will you introduce yourself?
I'm Don Tobias. I represent the Airline Pilots Association. And so what I haven't heard today was discussion about identifying how to translate to the front end what the back end's doing. And I think that's an important understanding that needs to occur. So that relates to identifying education and training needs for frontline people to be aware of the quality and to learn trust in the information they've been given. So any comment, or have you heard any thoughts about that? I think the user-centered design feature was potentially very useful for incorporating that into our thinking, so that when you're developing whatever it is you're developing, it would be most helpful, that the back-enders are able to translate. Thank you.
So Don, thank you
Yes,
for
ma'am.
that. And for those of you, stay up here. You got on live stream, so hang for a second. So Don has joined us. He's part of the Aeronautical Information Services Reform Coalition, representing, obviously, Airline Pilots Association, an important partner in this event. And so to your point, as we talk about Notam modernization, just to reflect your recollection, as we get the processes redesigned, as we get technology going, one of the key parts is education and preparation, both inside of FAA for people that are consuming that information internally, and most importantly, for people outside. So we're going to be looking to you and other partners in the coalition and anyone that wants to be a part of it to help us figure out what the right way to educate and prepare the people on the front line is. So thank you. That's a very important part.
Keep up the good work. I really appreciate what you're doing. Thanks.
Thank you,
Anybody else? You sure? Yes, sir. Come on up.
Hi there. My name's Alex Pufal. I'm with a small organization north from here in Montreal called ICAO. And
Could you spell that out, please, for our viewing audience?
the International Civil Aviation Organization.
Thank
so
you.
First of all, I'd love to congratulate the organizers for putting this wonderful data summit together. This is really awesome, and for everybody to really come here personally or virtually to contribute. But having said this, I'd like to add another level of complexity to an already very complex problem. And I'd like to increase that order of magnitude by 193, which is the number of member states of ICAO. So the NAS is indeed a very complex piece of airspace.
The NAS?
The National Airspace System.
The National Airspace System.
It's basically that beautiful blue sky above the United States. That is one of the busiest airspaces on planet Earth. And there are many solutions that are needed to address the problems in the National Airspace System. However, airplanes do fly internationally, and a solution that works in the United States does indeed, for international operators, need to be harmonized globally, internationally. So we've been talking a lot, or I heard a lot of things being mentioned about FAA issues, problems, solutions, right? SWIM for the FAA, for American operators and users, et cetera. However, ultimately, not everybody who flies in and out of DCA or Dulles, comes from Atlanta or LAX. They come and depart on international destinations. So solutions, whether it's Notam solution, SWIM solution, cloud-based solution, aeronautical information solution, or whatever, they have to work internationally. So the big word that we use at ICAO is basically interoperability. So I would strongly encourage every one of us here in the room to look at what we're doing to overhaul the systems that we are very familiar with, but to look at it also from the perspective of 193, and that is how can we really integrate every one of the member states internationally that we all love to fly to and from. And so having said this, this is my pledge for the international civil aviation cause. And again, thank you very much for putting this summit together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm John Hagrenis with Kitty Hawk. We're a U.S. service supplier with Lance. We also work with the FAA to develop the Before You Fly application to give airspace awareness to the general public. I want to follow up on this comment dealing with internationally and some of the conversations I had, some of the ways we were thinking about it was, how do you start fresh? Sometimes that's easier than updating an entire legacy system that 193 countries rely on. And related to that, Notam is such an antiquated word. Not just the gender piece, but machines and computers are arguably the primary user of this data. It's not a person. And so I would challenge us to think about how do we almost think about a new system, a new term, a new method, and then we don't have to deal with legacy adoption and migration, but let's start fresh and unshackle.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? No? Bueller? No? Okay. I think that's it then. Okay. So, Abby, I know you've got some closing comments as well as some information about what we plan to do with all of the feedback that we received here today.
So this was a really great day, and it was just, again, amazing to have 108 participants here in our live studio audience, and then I guess, Jeannie, what did we said over 3,000 on Twitter? Say the statistics again, because that's like music to my ears.
Let me make sure I can remember. So over 350, I believe, are watching on YouTube. We had about 1,500 Facebook and about 3,700 on Twitter.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, that's something to tweet about. Today was really great, and as we talked about this morning, this Notam modernization is hard. If it was easy, it would have already been done. And if it was easy, we could have done it with nobody's help. But we haven't finished it because it isn't easy, and everybody's ideas not only matter but are critical to successfully moving deeper into the 21st century and getting the safety information to the people that they need it. Notam modernization is about stakeholder engagement. It's about process improvement. It's about technology and data optimization, and it's about training and outreach. And it takes all of us in that community. Since we had essentially today our first really long date together, we want to make sure this isn't the last time that we're together. And so, once again, let me ask you to open up your phone, if you're not already surfing the web out of boredom, and to answer the following question. And it goes to where do we go from here? So here's the polling question. How often do you think we should get back together? And there are multiple choice on your Slido app. I think it's fun to watch the stats going. So 30, yeah. Whoever said weekly, come on. You're killing me. Nicole, you take that phone away from her. All right, so overwhelmingly, it looks like, at least right now, there are still votes being cast, clearly. It looks like folks are comfortable that we do this every 6 months, and I think that's a pretty good cadence because it gives us time to really get some things done, but not so far along the way that we can't continue in an agile method. So the next polling question that we have is, how do you prefer to interact? And there's multiple choice available. Your choices are going to be virtually, in person, or a little of both. We see the introverts on the virtual coming through now. Good. Okay, so our next question. So I think a little of both is probably about right, and so I think this worked pretty well today. And what's really cool is if you were in the virtual audience and you had a representative here in our live audience, there might be an opportunity to change it up the next time. We actually talked about this, just a little spoiler alert. We talked about, well, when do we want to meet again? And what we were notionally thinking was maybe July, after the June changes have gone in, to see how that's working and see where we continue the momentum from there. Because I think a lot's going to happen in the first half of 2020 that's pretty exciting. Next question. How do you want to receive information from us? And there are multiple choices. Whoa. So what this is telling me is there's not a lot of Generation Z people that are plugged into this event right now. But there are some millennials because they're saying all of the above. And so, So I think we'll just keep moving forward with what we're doing right now and kind of going all of the above until further advised. But if you have a specialized way that you want us to communicate with you, no different than what we're trying to get with better aeronautical information and NOTAMs, let us know if you have if you have one method, or like if we're emailing, you're like, please don't blow up my inbox. I'll get it a different way. We're happy to tailor it to your needs. And then I guess lastly, this is an open-ended question, and then we'll take the notes on the Slido. Is what did we not ask you that you want to share with us? And this may take some thought leadership, and we can leave the Slido.com open for a while. But I want to make sure that we're really being sensitive to what's on your mind and what you need from us. So before we go, I'm reminded of a pretty great thinker who has been, most kids, their childhood hero is a sports person or maybe a politician, maybe not right now, I'm not sure. But for me, my childhood hero was Albert Einstein, because here was this person that really didn't speak at all until they were about 5 years old, and then spoke in complete paragraphs, and who was considered unteachable, but it's just because he was so much more advanced and thought so differently, teachers didn't know how to teach him, right? But Albert Einstein tells us the world we've created is a product of our ways of thinking. We cannot change it until we first change those patterns. I think that what we're doing here today and what we can continue to do as we move deeper into the future is a way to change that pattern so we change our future landscape. And I thank each and every one of you for taking time out and expense to be here for a full day to dedicate to this. And I'm excited to go forward on this journey with you moving forward. All of the presentations that you saw we'll have available to you after the fact, because I saw some people scribbling down notes or trying to take pictures of the screens. Don't worry about that. We'll send that to you. We'll also be sending you a summary of all the sticky notes that are around the walls and the information and word clouds on Slido. So this can be as transparent and as iterative as possible. I think because there's a lot of information to take down, I think we'll send you the presentations later today or tomorrow for a summary of the data. Give us until after the new year. It's going to be, the holidays are coming pretty rapidly, and so I don't want to completely clog up the work that the team is doing here. So by the new year, you'll have a summary of this, and then we'll just stay in touch between now and next summer when we have our next summit. So with that, thank you very much, and safe travels to you all. Check your NOTAMs.